up, everyone? My name is Jonas Shackelford, and this is my young adult literature presentation. Let's get started. Okay, so my prompt was to make a summary of a scholarly article about Black male gay creatives and or characters in young adult literature. So the article I chose to present on was Charles I. Nero's Toward a Black Gay Aesthetic, signifying in contemporary Black gay literature. This article is about, basically, it starts off by talking about the struggles that Black gay men face um, in literature. And so he says that the intellectual writings of Black Americans have been dominated by heterosexual ideologies and have resulted in the Black gay male experience being excluded, marginalized, or ridiculed. And he says because of heterosexualism among African American intellectuals and the racism in the white gay community, Black gay men have been an invisible population. And his goal is to answer how Black gay men have created a positive identity for themselves and how they construct a literary text which would render their lives visible and therefore valid. And in his article, he focuses on the strategies by Black gay men who have either identified themselves as gay or who feature gay Black characters prominently in their works. So, throughout his article, he talks about signifying. And this term signifying is based on Henry Louis Gates Jr.'s theory of signifying throughout his article. This is a picture of Henry Louis Gates Jr. Some of you may know him from the PBS show Finding Your Roots, where he talks about celebrities' roots. And he has a lot of other pieces of literature, so I would recommend. But according to his theory, signifying is a practice in the African American culture of representing an idea indirectly through commentary that is often humorous, boastful, insulting, or provocative. Gates used signifying to interpret works by African American writers, and this is what Nero utilizes in his articles to interpret works by African American writers. A simple example of this would be insulting someone to show them affection. When used as rhetorical strategy, signifying assumes that there is shared knowledge between communicators and therefore the information can be given indirectly. And this term was coined in Henry Louis Gates Jr.'s book, The Signifying Monkey. So if you want to learn more about signifying, I would suggest reading that book. Nero states that signifying is to put someone in check and make them think about their behavior and hopefully correct this behavior. So it makes sense why many black men who are gay would use this type of framework in their literature. And he says that the reason for this is because the use of gay black men signifying places the literature in African American tradition and allows gay black men to revise the black experience and create a space for themselves. And something that really surprised me was while reading this article, was Nero's criticism of other literature and other authors. And I was very surprised that he criticized a famous author, Toni Morrison. He criticized Toni Morrison's depiction of black gay men in her novels. And he states that Morrison has woven in her novels these ideas of homosexuality as being alien to African cultures and forced upon black men by racist European civilization as the inability to acquire and sustain manhood. And he states in The Bluest Eye, and many of you have probably read The Bluest Eye or have heard about it because it's a really popular book that is really read a lot in a lot of young adult literature. And he stated that in this book, Morrison relies on the stereotype the light-skinned black man was weak and sexually impotent, and the character is Soaphead Church. And this character is described as only dating girls because he was too different to confront homosexuality. And he also criticized her depiction of gay black men in her other novels, and he states that they're homophobic, that she's homophobic because of her writing reveals her inability to imagine homosexual relationships among heroic characters. These are his words. These are his words, not mine. So I thought that was interesting. Nero claims that black gay men should be cautious with looking for an image in themselves because there's homophobia in the black community and there's racism in the LGBTQ plus community. And he states that there has been very limited space for Black gay men in literature. So he goes on to talk about um, Black gay men authors, and one of them that he talks about is Larry Duplican. Sorry, I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Sorry. Larry attempts to revise attitudes about interracial dating by signifying gay stereotypes of interracial love and lust. Many people have criticized Black gay men for dating white gay men, and Duplican was told um, in his life that his preference for dating white blonde men was a result of 300 years of white male oppression. In his in his two novels, Blackbird and 8 Days a Week, the protagonist Johnny, who's in both of them, is a Black gay young adult, being in high school in the first novel and in his early 20s in the second one, and he is sexually attracted to white men. And Nero states that um, Duplican was able to signify greatly in this novel by sexually objectifying white men in African American literature. So it's a way of like using irony in a way. Um, and then he puts another author he mentions that I'm going to have a picture of in the next slide. Um, Nero talks about an author named Craig G. Harris, who greatly signifies on the Black family in his short story, Cut Off from Among Their People. And it signifies slave narratives. The story takes place at the funeral of character, who's the main character named Jeff. It takes place, well, Jeff's lover actually is the main character. Um, and his partner, Jeff, has died. And so both the family and the church have allied against Jeff. And uh, the biological family of Jeff's partner has excluded Jeff from making decisions about the funeral. At the funeral, Jeff is humiliated by the family and the church. Jeff is not allowed to sit with the family. His mother stares at Jeff angrily through the whole service, and even the minister asks him to wear a plain suit instead of the ceremonial robes, and he preaches a homophobic sermon at the funeral. He is even left to get to the burial on his own, and he's left alone after the service. And it is only the undertaker, that is the caretaker of the dead, who is also gay and at the funeral, and shows him compassion by giving him a pep talk and shares that he himself has just lost his lover 3 months ago, and tells Jeff to let the love of his lover keep him going strong, which I thought was really beautifully put. Um, Here's the picture that I was talking about of Harris, and it is through the use of Harris iconic signifying that readers are able to ponder the meaning of the story's title, Who Was Cut Off from Their People. The story implies that Black gays are oppressed because they are alienated from their families, and Harris shows that Black families are oppressors, but they are alienated from their gay children and thus suffer because their oppression robs them of compassion. So I thought it was a really interesting twist to have the Black people who are the oppressed be the oppressors in the story. I thought it was really interesting. Um, and Charles Nero concludes his article by saying that because of the restrictions that racism and homophobia have placed on Black gay men, there have been numerous gay Black men authors who have created literature that validates the lives of being Black and gay. Nero's critical reading of this literature depended on the tradition of signifying, and the writers discussed in his articles, such as Larry Duplican and Craig G. Harris, seek to revise this tradition in the Black community. And he states that homophobia must be eliminated from this uh, social, science, scientific, critical, and imaginative writings within the African American literary tradition. And thank you. And these are my citations. Thank you so much for listening. I learned a lot doing this project, and I hope you learned some from my presentation. Thank you so much.